Andy Stern. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Matthew. Matthew's done a great job organizing this event. This is the third annual boat tour, and I want to get a big round of applause for Matthew as well. Thank you, Matthew. And we're joined here by a few of the folks that actually help make this project possible and keep it up and running. So what I'll do is give a quick overview of the project, the history, and some of the basic specifications of the machine, and maybe hint at the future of clean energy in Hull. As Matthew said, I've organized and formed a nonprofit called Action for Clean Energy, and the mission and goals of Action for Clean Energy is to assist and help citizens and communities get green, and that could be installing large wind turbines, as we see here in the background, to solar, biofuels, and even tidal energy. Hull is forward-thinking enough to also be looking at a potential tidal or water hydrokinetic project right here in Hull Gut. As Matthew said, my name is Andy Stern, and I'm an electrical engineer from Worcester Polytech. I was very fortunate while doing my undergrad work to be involved with designing, building, and racing a solar vehicle. We raced the vehicle from Orlando, Florida to Detroit, Michigan, about 1,800 miles, and that was in 1990. I led the electrical engineering group and designed and built the solar modules as well as the battery storage or the gas tank. It was a great event. Yes, we did come in first one day, and I claim that my Boston driving helped with that. I was the winning driver. So for those of you who would like, we could send out pictures from this event. We're going to take a little bit of video here and put that video on YouTube. So I'll leave it to Matthew to help with that outreach. But what we're standing in front of right here is Hull Wind 1, a very modern machine that was installed in 2001 after the efforts of the good folks and citizens of Hull, Massachusetts. Not only the citizens, but also the elected officials, select men and women, as well as the folks at Hull Municipal Light plant. The Municipal Light Company is Hull's electric company. So every citizen is essentially a ratepayer, and they do a great job keeping the lights on. The project came about from an earlier project that was installed just behind that grass mound. When we break from here, if you want to go look, the concrete footing is still there, and that's where a 40 kilowatt size machine was installed, and that is at the time was called behind the meter type of a project, where that energy was fed directly into the high school. And for those of you that have the handout, a little bit of that information is outlined in the handout. We've got more on the boat if you didn't get them, but it's estimated over the 12 years it was installed that $70,000 worth of electricity was generated and essentially saved the high school. So what we see here is a repowering of the site. Hull and truly the region have been using wind power now since, here specifically in Hull, since the 1820s. Hull had a pair of brothers from Ipswich had a salt works on this site, a bunch of big vats, which they used a mechanical Dutch-style wind turbine to pump seawater into these vats. In the winter, they would freeze the water and separate the salt, and that was used primarily for packing fish before refrigeration. So very, very big fishing industry, and before refrigeration, that's how fish was preserved. As I mentioned, from 84 to 96, there was a smaller machine installed. This machine behind us at the time was one of the largest machines installed in a municipal installation east of the Mississippi. It's a Vestas machine. It's made by a Danish firm called Vestas, and it's one of their most popular machines ever produced. 660 kilowatt machine, and it has a capacity factor of 28%. So over the course of the year, that equates to about 1,600 megawatt hours of clean energy. And that's how the project pays for itself. There's the electron or the energy component, as well as state and federal clean energy credits. This machine right now, the credits go to are purchased by Mass Energy Consumer Alliance. They turn around and remarket those credits to their members as green certificates. Hull 2, which went into permitting shortly after Hull 1 was installed, that's a much larger machine, 1.8 megawatt V80, also a Vestas. It's on the other side of town. Those credits are bought by Harvard University. So as you can see, a private-public partnership, not only to install these machines, but also to support them. The machine is on a 50-meter tower, 47-meter rotor diameter, and has a constant revolution of 28.5 RPM. Starts up at about 7 miles an hour and will shut down at speeds over 50 miles an hour for 10 minutes or more. Again, starting back up when the wind slows down. That's the real basic info of the project, how it got started. We have some town officials here that I know are limited with time. So what I'd like to do is get them up here to say a few words, and then we could open the floor to the questions and get people inside. Does that sound all right? All right, great. The first person I'd like to introduce is Joan Messino. Come on down, Joan. I don't know if you're going to have time to speak too much, but I did want to say hello and introduce you.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you so much for your
thank you.
little notepad.
He bribed me.
I did bribe her.
I just wanted to pop down and welcome you all to the town of Hull. We actually enjoy having visitors such as yourself, and Andy has done a great job of keeping the interest in our wind turbines and keeping the tourists coming. So we really are just so grateful for your interest and your continued support, and we are more than happy to answer any questions about the project, about our town. I am probably the least qualified to answer them. We have much more qualified people. Our Pat Cannon, the chairman of our light board, is here, and they're intimately involved with all of the details. But if there are any questions about the town or whatever, I'd be happy to answer them and let the more qualified people speak.
Well, great.
Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks, Joan.
And thank you to Andy.
Yeah.
He's such a great advocate for wind, and he's done so much, and you're in good hands with him.
Thanks, Joan.
Sure.
So why don't we do that? Why don't we bring Pat? Can you come on down and say a couple words to the folks and maybe answer some basic questions? Pat Cannon, thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The best thing that I like to tell everyone about this machine and how it happened to get planted here is we had one guy in this town that used to run a little natural food store. His name was Malcolm Brown. He was big time into green renewable energy, and he used to be a royal pest to me when I had to go there and pick up a bottle of vitamins for my wife, and he just wouldn't let go. He kept at it every time I'd go in there, and said, I think this is a great idea. The town of Hull could really, thrive with this. And long story short, I suggested to him, why don't you, make an appointment with our board and we'll hear you out. So we did, and he won us over. So there's just one person that really carried the ball and pushed it forward, spoke to enough people, and had it become a reality. So he really got us moving and got us to believe that this can be a great thing. That was probably back 97, 98. And so we've come a long way to the point of which, we didn't stop here. We, have Hull Wind 2, and as Andy mentioned earlier, we're going to investigate this summer the amount of flow we have in the gut here for some underwater turbines. So it's been a great thing for us. We were lucky to be first on the East Coast to do it. We've got a lot of notoriety about it, and it's been a joy, to have a lot of people want to come to our town and see what we've accomplished. So I thank you for coming. If you have any particular questions, we'd be glad to field them for you, the best of our knowledge.
What's the wind blowing right now?
What's the wind now? You have to look at the computer.
I say it's 3.7 meters per second.
Pretty good guess.
Anyone? Yeah, we'll try to keep it louder.
Speaker.
I promise we'll keep it a little bit louder. So Pat, yell at him.
All right. Yes, sir.
What's the status of the offshore initiative?
4 meters
I was gonna.
per second is the almost.
And that's a cut-in speed.
I'm sorry, sir.
What's the status of the offshore farm?
The status of the offshore farm.
Offshore farm, we're in the midst of working on financial analysis on that, on where it, what kind of money it will really entail to accomplish that goal. It's a very expensive project. It no doubt is going to come down to hopefully a lot of grant money or something like that hopefully we'll be able to chase. We've done quite a few investigations into the, the lobster survey, geodatic information, some test borings and such. Help us get there through the permitting process. There's been no final decision made yet on, whether it's a go or a no-go, but we have to go through these processes to.
How much energy can you generate underground in the waves?
In the waves,
It's not even, can't be compared to a turbine.
well, from what we're told, we sat with a Professor Gorlov from Northeastern University last fall, I believe it was, and he's invented the Gorlov turbine, and that, to our knowledge, it's the way it's been explained to us. The beauty of that generation is it may be a half a megawatt machine, but it can have as much as an 80% capacity factor. And whereas the turbines here are 28% because the wind only blows so much, whereas the tide out here, other than the slack times in the tide, we can do pretty well with something like that. But we do have some big hurdles to jump here. It's a navigable waterway. Coast Guard will have a lot to say about that, even if there is enough flow out there to support it. So, it can be significant if all things go in our favor.
Yeah, the additional thing about water energy, the energy in water's almost 1,000 times more dense than air. So even a 2 or 3 knot water flow will have substantial energies contained within it. So.
Clearly in this town you have such a wonderful resource of wind because you're right on the ocean. I'm thinking about towns more inland. I've been told in our town we don't have enough wind, and I don't believe that. Can you talk about that? I'm in Acton. But just a lot of inland towns. Is there enough wind to do this in every town?
Probably not necessarily, but you have to do it. One of the first things you have to do is go through a wind study. You put up a Met tower for a year, and you let that be the boss and tell you whether you have enough wind to support it.
Do you know of towns that have done that and been rejected and found they didn't have enough wind?
Middleborough.
Middleborough, really?
Middleborough Big State Forest, put a Met tower up in their highest point, let it stay a year, and enough wind to blow a match over.
Yeah, the most important aspect in the process is probably your resource assessment. That resource assessment, whether wind, solar, in our case, tidal, is really going to help determine your financial and economic position, and then you can take further steps in the process, such as permitting and other siting activity. But knowing your resource is the first and most important step.
One quick second.
Sure.
Down there.
Yep.
Oh, you can reach up.
Okay.
If you want to conduct that kind of net study, who do you go to set that up?
Sorry, ma'am.
How do you go about it?
Well, we dealt.
Okay. We done?
No, not yet.
With UMass Renewable Energy, Dr. Manuel, James Manuel. UMass Renewable Energy, Dr. James Manuel, who was very involved with us from the very beginning, and he guided us through the things such as the wind study and all kinds of different studies we've had to do. So, that would be a starting point.
One of the things I'd like to do, since we have so many people and we are limited with time, I promised some of the folks we'd be on the boat and heading back back to Quincy by 3. We could take a few more questions, but for folks that want to cycle through the turbine, we've got a lot of folks here. So if it's something general, that's great. Otherwise, it would be good if you maybe take some of us aside. But go ahead.
Well, I think it's safe to say that what we're seeing here is this shift from fossil fuels to alternative energies, which is imperative. I mean, it's a shift that our society is going through. That has to happen, is going to happen. And I also would say that this is part of a much larger issue of being more responsible about how we as a society generate electricity and being more accountable for the impacts of that. So what I'm curious about, and I'd like you guys to talk about, is the environmental impact process, assessment process that you go through, both for wind and for water turbines. What are, just being, we know why it's better than fossil fuels, but what are the potential impacts? What do you guys do to mitigate those impacts.
Well, Pat, you were intimately involved with the assessment here in permitting Hull 1 and 2, so.
Well, we went through our local conservation commission to start, issues just about breaking ground and things like that. What are you going to do with any water in the ground after you dig the hole? And not that it's environmental, but one of the other steps is being on the direct path to the airport. The FAA is heavily involved. You do the geodetic surveys for digging down so deep and what your foundation has to be comprised of. We weren't, it wasn't so involved here as it was at the other end of town because we were going in a closed landfill. That was much, much more involved. Number one, because it was the first time it was ever done on a landfill, and the foundation was much more significant, and many more issues on breaking the cap of a closed landfill and things like that. So it was a learn as you go process, and listen to your consultants that find out the right answers for you and everything. It was very, very involved.
So if it's all right with folks, I would like to start cycling folks in so they can take a look. You'll be able to go right up and take a look at it. Try to keep, it's really echoey and loud, so if you do have questions, try to bring them out here so we can get people in and out of the turbine. And please do not press the stop button. All right, folks, thank you very much. And we'll all be here for questions. So I just want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to get inside.